Hello everyone, it's Ashley at the Silver Bay Public Library, and I am back once again with a story time for you guys. If you remember, this week our theme is nature as part of our summer reading program. So I have picked out 4 fun books about nature, animals, farming, the whole shebang. Our first book is going to be The Hike by Allison Farrell, or Farrell, I'm not quite sure. I'm guessing Farrell. And I don't really have much else to say, so how about we dive right in to the story. Pages are hard. Yoo-hoo, almost ready? Yelled the little girl. Just one more cut, responded. Just a few more feathers. 3 sisters, garden. We're going on a hike. There's Wren, Elle, Hattie, and their dog, Bean. There's a Steller's Jay Feather, Snowberry, a chipmunk, a red fox, Mullion, a bumblebee, Lupin. Looks like they're going to Buck Mountain. It's our favorite thing to do. Shook, 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 goes the Steller's Joy. Hey, wait for me, cries Hattie. In the beginning, we run like maniacs. Until a ripe patch of thimbleberries slows us down. Elle teaches us how to make leaf baskets. Wren sketches in her sketchbook. Like this, Elle? Elle says yes. We may have eaten too many berries, says, Wren. Is that even possible, asks Elle. I thought we were saving some for later, cried Hattie. The hike gets steep and the trail narrows. Boo, yells Hattie. Ah, Hattie, how'd you get up there so fast, cried Elle. Eventually we got lost. They looked at maps, but they didn't know where north was. Or whether or not to cross the river. Wren, what's another word for blue? Azure, cerulean, cobalt? I think. Did we go left after the berry patch? Asked Hattie, still staring at a map, trying to figure out where to go. In no time, we get back on track. A deer walks past, Bean sneezes. The deer vanishes so quick, we wonder if it was even really there at all. A light rain comes and goes, the birds are happy. We listen to them chirp and chatter in the trees. Hattie gets tired, Elle offers to carry her. Soon, Elle is tired too. They're getting to the top of the mountain. It looks like everyone's on Wren's back now. At the top, Wren takes out her flag, Elle reads her poem, and Hattie releases feathers into the wind. We did it! And now they're racing down the hill again. As they make their way home, it's dark outside and they can see the constellations in the night sky. There's a bunch of notes here of things they saw during the day, which if you come get the book, you can look at them more closely. More and more animals and plants. And it looks like that is the end of the book. So that was the hike. It's one of those books where the story, they hike up a fun mountain, but if you get the book for yourself, you can see how many cool little critters and plants and flowers and food that they see. So make sure to come check this one out. The next one is I Am a Farmer, Growing an Environmental Movement in Cameroon, by Baptiste and Miranda Paul. Illustrations by Elizabeth Zunon. Let's see what this is all about. This is northwestern Cameroon. Green, wet, alive. The rainy season has begun. A young boy arrives at his grandmother's farm. His feet squish between rows of cabbage and beans. His small hands plunge into the dirt. Nishi! Oh, Tanto, his father laughs. His grandmother laughs too. They do not stop him. They understand his joy. Tanto rummages through grandmother's market basket. A sharp smell fills the air. Onions! He wonders if he can grow them by himself. He sneaks them under a banana tree. Each day, when he checks on his secret garden, the greens have shriveled a bit more. Eventually, the bulbs dry up. Why won't they grow, Makfu? He asks his grandmother. They need sunlight and earth, she says, and most importantly, water. She explains that nature has its own way of working. Tanto wants to learn more. He wants to learn everything. When he begins school, Tanto drinks up facts and figures faster than his teacher can pour them onto the chalkboard. His hand shoots up like a cornstalk. Teachers frown. Too many questions. Students giggle. What's so interesting about plants and dirt and weather? As a teenager, Tanto is still fascinated by nature. Tanto's father is sick, but he finds a way to buy his son a shovel and other gardening supplies. Tanto uses these tools every day and keeps record books of the seeds he planted and how long each one takes to grow. He shows his biology teacher, Mr. Ken, his records. His classmates give him a nickname, Farmer. It is not a nice name. It is a name that is meant to make him feel as low as the dirt beneath his feet. But Tanto loves the dirt. He loves the texture of roots, the smell of dark, wet soil. He loves the corn it can grow and the fufu it provides for his brothers and sisters, especially now that his father is dying. One morning, he makes himself a new school uniform. He puts big letters on the front. Farmer. Tanto wears the shirt to school for the rest of high school. His elder brother shakes his head. Farmers are very poor. His brother urges him to do well on a special upcoming exam so he can provide for the family. If you get good marks, you can work in an office, be a police officer, or a teacher. On the day of his exams, Tanto considers his brother's advice. Their father has died, and his brother is now the head of the family. Tanto fills in the correct answers, the ones that will get him a good paying office job. Before he hands in his exam, he wipes dust off his desk. Dust that reminds him of how dry the land can be. His own mother and neighbors walk far to get clean water and struggle to grow enough food. He imagines himself away from them and stuck inside an office. He crosses out his answers and hands in his paper. He signs it F for Farmer. His teacher returns it, F for Fail. His days at school are over, so the land in his village of Kombe becomes his classroom. He spends his days and nights digging, planting, reading, asking. Even Mr. Ken, who lives nearby, can't answer all of Farmer Tanto's questions. As he works, Farmer Tanto meets others who share his love for the land and water. One of the people he meets recognizes how important his love of farming is and provides money to send him to college. Tanto will be able to study the environment and agriculture at a local school. Finally, his classmates and teachers will praise him for talking about the weather, learning about water, and playing with the soil. At college, Farmer Tanto is thirsty to learn everything he can. Although he soaks up plenty of facts and figures, clean water is still scarce. He contracts typhoid from drinking the local water. He's so sick, he worries he may not be able to graduate. For 7 years, medical doctors and local healers use their knowledge, medicines, and herbs to make Farmer Tanto feel better. During his recovery, he thinks a lot about his future and the future of his fellow Cameroonians. No one should die from drinking something that is necessary for life: water. After he is better, Farmer Tanto gets a chance to continue his studies in the U.S. There he finds out about new ways to save the rain, find clean underground water, and grow gardens and crops without poisoning the soils and wells. Back in Cameroon, Farmer Tanto is eager to use what he has learned. People are still getting sick because they don't have clean water, and when the dry season comes, there is hunger and drought. How can he help his people? Resources are limited. Most villages don't have tractors, tillers, irrigation systems to bring water to fields. Some don't even have roads. Farmer Tanto creates a motto to help motivate himself and others. When you don't have what you want, use what you have. While he doesn't have much, he does have people. Tanto gathers children and teenagers to join him in the fields. Some laugh at him or shake their heads, but others grab a shovel or hoe. Together they build botanical gardens and rain gardens that will hold water in the soil. These areas produce food or flowers all year long and provide green spaces to reconnect people with nature. The mayor of his home village, Nakambe, is impressed. Eventually, the mayor promises to make sure the garden stays beautiful for years to come. By now, everyone in northwest Cameroon is calling Tanto farmer, and they say it with pride. In the Fulani village of Akwato, Tanto learns that people are drinking from the same stream as their cattle. The water contains harmful bacteria and many children are getting sick. Tanto helps the villagers locate a clean spring, but they don't have money for equipment and laborers to build a catchment that can hold the water. Abi yu yeah, Tanto says. It's a Limbum phrase for community, meaning unity is strength. He translates into Fulani so that everyone in the village understands. Young and old, everyone in Akwato pitches in to clear a path or carry stones. Together they construct a catchment to capture the spring water. Before long, the entire village has crisp, clean water flowing year-round. 2 years later, a grandfather will tell farmer Tanto that since drinking the new water, not one of his neighbors or grandchildren has gotten sick or complained of a stomachache. One project leads to another and another. Farmer Tanto founds Save Your Future Association, a non-profit organization to which people around the world can donate money and supplies. With local and international support, he finds a way to bring clean water to Nijiron, a village suffering after a 30-year conflict. He begins a water delivery service for blind students, hires engineers to design stairways, railings, or ramps for villagers with physical disabilities. In places with large populations, communities build reservoirs so that in times of drought, people can get the water that they need. Today, this is northwest Cameroon. Sometimes wet, sometimes dry, but always very alive. Today, Farmer Tanto does not work alone. A stream of hands work to find fresh, clean water. A trickle of hope runs through many villages, and a crop of young farmers who are proud to be farmers are digging in, planting ideas, and growing a movement. And that's the story of I Am a Farmer. Community is very important, as you can see. But so is nature. I mean, we need it to survive, after all. Our next story is If I Was the Sunshine, by Julie Fogliano and Lauren Long. This one I'm pretty sure is going to be more of a cute story, not as big of a message behind it, but we'll find out. Oh, this is a big book, I hope you can see it. If I was the sunshine and you were the day, I'd call you hello. And you'd call me stay. If you were the winter and I was the spring, I'd call you whisper. And you'd call me sing. If I was a flower and you were a nose, I'd call you sniff. And you'd call me rose. If you were a bird and I was a tree, you'd call me home. And I'd call you free. The woodpecker pecked a heart. How cute. If I was an apple and you were a worm, you'd call me lunch. And I'd call you squirm. If you were a mountain and I was the sky, I'd call you almost. You'd call me high. If I was the ocean and you were a boat, you'd call me wild, and I'd call you float. If you were the thunder and I was a cloud, you'd call me softly, and I would call you loud. If I was the silence and you were a sound, I'd call you missing, and you'd call me found. If you were a firefly and I was the dark, you'd call me everywhere, and I'd call you spark. If I was the morning and you were the night, you'd call me tomorrow, and I'd call you sleep tight. And that's the story of If I Was the Sunshine. Pretty cute, pretty basic. Our last story for the day also be a bit of a longer one, and it's called A Map into the World by Ko Kalia Yang and illustrated by Seo Kim. I believe this one is about a young girl talking about seasons changing and things of that nature, and what makes more sense with nature than seasons. And I mean, Nature is all over the world. It is the world, so let us find out. Let me make sure this is yeah. The first time we saw the swing and the slide in the garden of the greenhouse with the big windows, my mother sat down in a chair in the backyard and said she did not want to get up. Tai and I looked at the garden, and she pointed out tomatoes, green beans, and a watermelon round as my mother's belly. Tai knelt down to touch the dirt. I asked my mother if I could try the swing, and she said yes. Taj do. Yet again, this is another book that I will not be able to pronounce all the words. It doesn't look like, at least not properly. The greenhouse became our house. I helped Tai hang the special story cloth about how the Hmong got to America on the empty wall by the big window in the living room. We saw an old man and woman wave through the window. They waved. We waved back. Later, my mother and father brought me across the street. The old man's name was Bob, and the old woman's name was Ruth. Up close, I could see that they were even older than Tai. Tai and I were in the garden picking tomatoes and beans and checking on the watermelon when my parents brought my baby brothers home from the hospital. I ran to the gate. The boys were smaller than my baby dolls, but cuter than any doll with their fuzzy heads and red lips and big, round, brown eyes. Some days the babies cried very loud. I covered my ears with my hands and asked my father to take me outside. Bob and Ruth sat on their special bench. We waved back and forth. The leaves of the two ginkgo trees by Bob and Ruth's house turned yellow like apricots. One day, a brisk wind blew, and the fan-shaped leaves came flying down. They covered the grass in the street and the dark mouth of the drain. Bob raked while Ruth sat and watched. I brought in a leaf for the babies to touch, but my mother said, "They're still too little." The snow made the world quiet around us. We stopped seeing Bob and Ruth outside. The snowflakes fell on their driveway and glittered in the gray light. I made a ball of snow for my brothers, but it melted before they woke up from their nap. At night, I looked out our big window at Bob and Ruth's house to see their lights shining across the dark street. Sometimes I saw a shape of a person looking back at me. I waved, but the shadow person never waved back. On a cold morning, cars came to our block, filling the street. Car doors slammed as men and women in thick jackets walked quickly to Bob and Ruth's house. My father said, "Ruth has died. Her family is coming to say goodbye." I felt sad for Ruth. My brothers just played with the toys above them. The cars kept coming and going the next day and the next. I swayed back and forth on my toes by the big window. I tried to lift one of my brothers so the people could see how cute he was, but he cried and my brother said, "You're still too little to carry him." After the Hmong New Year, my baby brothers learned how to sit on their own, and we all sat looking out the window together. I clapped for them when a plane flew across the high skies. They laughed every time. The house across the street looked empty. The ginkgo trees reached for the sky with their thin fingers. When the snow started melting, I could not wait to return to the swing and the slide and the garden. My baby brothers crawled all over the floor, underneath the table and the chairs. They were like puppies, their tongues licking everything. I found the first worm of the spring on the sidewalk and named her Annette. I wanted to bring her inside so my brothers could watch her wiggle, but my mother said, "I don't think so." The world became green again, and finally we all went outside. Tai planted green onions. I picked flowers from the lilac bushes for my brothers to smell. They opened their mouths and tried to eat them. My mother said, "Don't let them eat the flowers." We took the babies outside again, the next day after lunch. Bob's garage door opened and we all watched as he pushed out his special bench. He sat alone. I pulled on my mother's sleeve until she looked at me. I whispered an idea into her ear. My mother and I crossed the street and walked over to Bob. I let the sidewalk chalk bucket swing in my hand. I asked my mother to ask Bob if I could draw on his driveway. I said, "If he doesn't like it, the rain will come and wash it away." Bob nodded and said, "Go ahead." My mother and Bob talked in low voices. I could hear Bob say, "Ruth, she was with me for 60 years. I started with my picture with a teardrop. And then I made it splatter like sunshine. I drew lines leading away from the splattered sun in many directions. I drew a line that led to the garden. There I put a yellow ginkgo leaf. I drew a line that led to the grass. There I made the sparkling snow. I drew a line to the sidewalk. There I put a smiling worm named Annette. Smiling worm named Annette. I drew an arrow to her house. There I added lilac flowers. And then I drew a line, the biggest line of all, toward the street. And there I drew the whole world. When I was done, I walked quietly to my mother and to Bob. They stopped talking, and Bob shook my hand. "What did you draw for me?" he asked. I said in a whisper, "A map into the world, just in case you need it." Bob said, "I think I might," and hugged her tightly. And that's the story of a map into the world. How adorable. Well, that is all the nature stories I'm going to have for you today. I might switch it up for Friday, but we will see. So make sure to come check me out, or check the channel out again on Friday. I do story times and read alouds Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays if you're unfamiliar. But yes, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and the stories. Bye-bye.